Folks, this is Book Talk with Corbin, and I am your host. We have with us a new guest. Hopefully, she'll become a new friend of our show. This is a little different from what I usually do. Listeners, you know that. I usually do political stuff and cultural stuff, but I came across some information on this Miss Judith here, and she touched upon something that really hit my heart, and that is basically, victims of crime, and that can be anybody, anywhere, at any time. And I said, I need to bring this sister on to talk about herself and talk about her work and how she got involved and where we can get her books. Judith, look, you're listed as a criminologist. What is that?
Okay, criminologist is some teaches about crime, keeps up to date on crime and crime, studies criminal behavior, crime patterns. It's basically, I'm a student of crime, criminals, and I people safe, and I cover that in each of my books. There's a theme with, for example, child safety, the treatment of in the legal system. So focus is.
Great. And how did something like that? How did you get involved with something like that? Why? Were you a victim of crime, family member? What?
Well, every family is a victim of crime in some way, shape, or form. So yes, I have been a victim of crime personally, and then with my family, and then professionally as well. It started when I went back thinking, okay, what do I want to do? I wanted to go into psychology, but I have horrible dyslexia with numbers, and that was a lot of math. And I took an elective called criminal justice just because it sounded interesting. I come from, my grandfather was work security, and my father also worked in security. So I don't know or something, but I loved the criminal justice classes, and I just went from there. And I had wonderful, wonderful people, and helped me along, and found financial aid, when I desperately was. But I finished that degree, and I stayed with criminal justice.
That's fantastic. And then you got so much into it, you started writing books.
I did. I had a migraine related stroke several years ago, and I couldn't teach anymore. I obviously couldn't, because it affects my short-term memory when I'm having a headache and motor skills. And I thought, okay, what do I want to do? And I've written literally since first grade. So I said, you know what? I think I'll try a book. And about that same time, a case fell into my lap that a friend of a friend suggested I look into. And it just went from there.
Well, and what was that case? Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, it was the murder of a little boy named Brad Maddox, who lived in a very small town in Indiana. And the perpetrator was possibly about to be released. And I was notified and said, could you do an article on this? And I got to, know the family. And I thought, this little boy's story needs to be told. And then I dovetailed it with crimes against children and how to spot perpetrators and prevention thereof, because I'm a huge advocate of prevention versus reaction.
Yes.
And it just kind of went from there. I received their blessing, which I will not write a book unless the surviving victims agree. And it went from there, and it won an award. And I thought, you know what, I think I found a calling here. So I ran with it.
Well, yeah, you call it a calling, a calling of ministry, because I can imagine, you really helped out that family. Losing a child, what can you say? But I think I get the impression you really help that family out in some way, bring some good out of that tragedy. And was it a situation where the young person was just kidnapped, snatched or something like that?
No. He went out with some friends one night to this man's house. This man he was all the red flags of a perpetrator. All his friends
Hmm.
were underage. He provided alcohol to them at his house for parties.
Hmm.
He had sexually groped a boy when they were in high school. So he had all of these red flags. Well, Brad and went to this guy's house to drink. You know, he's a kid. He's like 13, 12, 14. So, and it went from there. And I should add that Brad felt safe because this guy was a relative.
Oh my God. What was the name of that book, sis, and how can we get a hold of it?
It's called The Devil You Know, and you
Hmm.
can get it on my website. It's truecrimebook.net. And you can also purchase them since it's COVID and I can't do any book signings now. You can purchase a signed book as well. So I have sort of a virtual book signing table online now.
That's
But
great.
it's
That's
www.truecrimebook.net.
truecrimebook.net.
Yes.
And if we want to sign, if we go there, we buy it, and we want a signed copy, do we have to like ask you, hey, please sign this copy?
No, you can order it signed or you can purchase it unsigned.
Oh, wow. Okay, great. And in that book, do you sort of like give some, this is probably a bad way to put it, but tips on how, young people, or we can protect our young people?
Yes, I do. No, that's not a bad word. I do give tips on safety for children, how to teach children to not live in fear, but live in awareness.
Mm, good
And
way to put
I
it.
also profile perpetrators of people who target kids.
Right. And speaking to my listeners, this is an important book. Every parent should have this book. Every last one. If you're a parent, you're listening to this podcast, get that book. And if you know a parent, tell them to go to that website and get that book. My sister was almost snatched. And so, fortunately, my father had said some things to her. And one of the things he told her is if somebody lures you don't know them, they want you to come to the car, don't go. And he tried. And she said, no, I don't know you. And he exposed himself.
Good girl.
Yeah.
Good girl.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you to your dad for doing that because too many parents are afraid of talking to their kids or they pull this, not my family,
Right.
not my kid, or I don't want to think about it. I get that a lot. I think about it. Well, we need to think about it because 3 out of 5 little girls in a classroom will be sexually molested. 2 out of 5 little boys in a classroom will be sexually molested. We
Mm.
have to think about these things. And waiting till high school or what have you is too late. We've got to teach our kids now. And again, you don't have to live in fear or worry that, I'm going to teach them something they don't need to know, but you can give them the tools. And
And
I also have,
uh,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was about to say, and one of those tools is your book. It's for these parents to buy these books and buy your book and read it and share and tell other parents to buy it and get it. Now you're about to say something else. Go ahead, sis.
Ah, okay. I have another book called How to Recognize the Devil because I believe that we're mostly surrounded by angels, but devils lurk.
Mm.
And it's every crime prevention class I've ever taught for elderly, for children, for domestic violence, travel at home and abroad, and home security. And it's also let me stop there, Corbin, and read it.
Mm-hmm.
It also has work pages and note-taking pages because there are some exercise within the book to help you learn these skills. And the proceeds from this book, 100% goes to charity. Now, each of my books, a percentage goes toward a nonprofit organization, and I make it in the victim's name. But 100% of these profits for this book goes to a charity because I think people need these skills. And I've taught crime prevention, common sense self-defense for years. I just put all of these classes into one book.
Wow, that's fantastic. So actually, if we couldn't get you at a workshop, we might be able to do the workshop ourselves using the book. Would that, the book is the basis for the workshop. Would that work or what?
The books are the basis for the workshop. It's always better to learn, live and in
Yes.
person,
Yeah.
simply because you can ask questions, you can have a dialogue. But the book has just so much information for people, all the way up to how to talk to your child, to how to spot elderly abuse in a nursing home, to, okay, I'm traveling abroad. What do I need to know? How do I keep myself safe? And again, this is proactive, not reactive.
Yes. Yes.
This is before you're at the police station in tears over everything from a lost wallet card to someone has hurt my child or my grandmother or even myself.
Right. Right. Do you see yourself eventually traveling again to do workshops? Because this is important work you're doing. You're saving lives. So do you
I
see?
hope so. I hope I get back to travel soon. I've missed so many book signings and presentations this summer. It's crazy. Of
Good.
course, everybody knows, what COVID has done, but I can do them, online, and then I can also do them in person. And there's also the book.
So, and the best way to contact you is your web address?
www.truecrimebook.net. Yes, you can contact me through my website. I do have a page where I list some of the classes I teach and how to get a hold of me.
Listeners, did you hear that? Make sure you go to that website, get that book, and start looking through the different workshops she does, and see about bringing her to your town. Folks, we need this. We need this. And as I'm listening to my sister here, I got to thinking about some things that when I was overseas one time in the Philippines, that I was literally, they almost tried to kidnap me. And then I don't know if you're aware of this case or not, but years ago here in Louisville, Kentucky, a a Russian girl, she had just come from Russia. She was just snatched from a mall, and they think it was in broad daylight because they found her bicycle there. And to this day, I mean, it's like 35, 40 years later, they still haven't found her. And what really impacted us the most about that case is this was in a suburban neighborhood. And when we would go, I would do this all the time. Me and my buddies would do it all. We'd ride our bicycles to the mall, drop them there, drop them outside, go inside, play video games for several hours, come back out, get on our bicycles. I mean, that's how safe it was. But she was taken.
Well, I don't think that crime has, suddenly we're seeing crime and it used to be safe and we could live with our doors unlocked. That's a personal thing. And crime happens everywhere, everywhere.
Mm.
There are just as many problems happening in these upper crust neighborhoods as are happening in the quote unquote ghetto or low socioeconomic areas. Just as much crime happening, it's just as covered better. And you can't tell me money doesn't affect your status in the judicial system, because it does. There's just as much things happening. It might not be the same crimes, but it's happening.
Wow.
And, people say, well, it used to be safe, or, we didn't have to worry about that before, because we didn't have an awareness of it before. When you and I were kids, I don't recall ever seeing in the paper or on the news about a child molested, a child snatched,
Right.
A family that beat their kid and left them, tied up and starving in the basement. That didn't make the news. We didn't talk about things like that. And X number of years prior to that, we sure as hell didn't talk about it then. So it's not that there's less crime or we have to worry. It's just we have to be more aware.
And that's a key word. You're not wanting us to walk around in fear. You're saying, hey, just be aware of your surroundings, so to speak. Or don't let me put words in your mouth. But I get the impression you're not telling us to live in fear, right?
Right. And for example, I was talking to an employee once when I worked in loss prevention, and I said, okay, she was afraid of her boyfriend. And I said, has he ever hurt you? Well, no, he's not like that. I mean, he slapped me and he's tried to choke me. Okay, see, it's an awareness of what is violence, what is domestic violence.